Good evening, all, and thank you very much for tuning in today to All India Runners Motivation. Today's guest, I'm very proud and privileged to present today's guest. She's a winner of Comrades Marathon 2018 with a great time of 6 hours and 10 minutes and 4 seconds. She Her best time in full marathon 42 kilometers is 2 hours and 35 minutes and 44 seconds. A personal best in 21K half marathon is 1 hour 15 minutes. She is not only a runner, she's an inspiration to many, and she is on a mission to encourage runners to run their best. With great pride and privilege, for the first time, she is addressing our runners in India. I would like to welcome Anne Ashworth.
Hi,
Hello,
Rajesh.
Anne.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for making the time. I know that you've got a busy schedule, so it's thank you so much. I can't say how thankful we are to have you here.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
Thank you. How is the summer out there in your place?
Yeah, it's pretty hot. It's probably not India hot, but it's hot for me. It's very humid. It's probably about 30, 36 to 38 degrees today. Pretty warm. Yeah, so training very early in the morning and late at night or in the evening is definitely preferable.
Okay. So how? So did you run today?
Yeah, we did 15 Ks this morning, and then I did an hour of strength training, and I've got some cycling to do this evening.
Wonderful. That's nice. I believe that you have got a gym at home, a very well equipped gym.
Yeah, so fortunately, we were sponsored a whole lot of gym equipment in 2018, and we were able to set up our home gym, which has been really lucky and just very convenient to have it at home instead of going into the gym.
Especially during these times.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not a fan of gyms anyway. I think they're quite dirty and full of germs. So I'm
Okay,
quite happy to now have my gym at home. But there's no excuse for missing out on your strength training. You really have to just get it done.
that's nice. So we got a lot of people tuning in and conveying their hellos. We have a legend from India. He is the Comrades legend, having run 10 back-to-back Comrades. His name is Satish, and he's got his the green the number actually. So
Oh,
the
cool.
green. So he's got that medal, and he's the one who's inspiring the runners, and he's one of the reasons why a lot of people from India are running the Comrades. So he's
Oh,
conveying his
that's
hello, yeah. And we got
cool.
other people also, a lot of people from different parts of India conveying their hello. So we got a good audience now who's wanting to listen to you. So let me just start by asking you, I mean, if you can just tell a bit about yourself and how your journey in running started, it'll be nice.
Sure. So I've been running for most of my life. I don't have any brothers and sisters, so I didn't really play games or sports at school that needed me to have other people involved. So I've been running since I was at junior school. And my dad was a very good runner, and he also obviously encouraged me to be involved in running. So really have run right from when I was like 9 years old, competing in the 3K cross country. Um, till now, I've just always been a runner. But I started running ultra distances when I was 22 in 2006, which was in memory of my dad. My dad passed away in late 2005. And I decided he'd always wanted me to run ultra distance races, and I hadn't done one yet. And so I decided that I was going to run the Two Oceans Marathon in memory of my father. And that was my first ultra, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the best thing to run far and do well. And other people got tired, and I didn't get tired. I was just excited to keep running, and I think that was really the moment that I just thought your ultra distance running is definitely what I want to keep doing.
Wonderful. And you were not very, yeah, you did not like very much the smaller distances, the sprints part of it, but you always loved the longer distances.
Yeah, I mean, even at school, you have all those little different distance races running around the field when you're a child, and I hated anything that was less than one whole lap around the school field. I was like, everything's too short. I used to come stone last. I just hated it. But
Okay.
then the longer and longer I ran, the better and better I did. So, other children maybe were dying after 2 kilometers and I was just getting started. So I think you're then naturally attracted to a distance where you are more successful.
Okay, that's nice. I mean, yeah, it happens with a few runners. I remember I had interviewed Amby Burfoot, who was the 1968 Boston Marathon winner, and he also said he absolutely hated the shorter distance, but the longer distances he would see that he could beat many other people who were very good in short distances. So is something
No,
similar for you also?
yeah.
Okay. So the two Asians, Satish is saying it's one of the most beautiful marathons in the world. So tell us about your first race, and you did extremely well in that race too. So tell us something about it.
So I decided in the December that I'd wanted to run this race, and I had never run further than 30 kilometers before. So I had to start training for, obviously, my qualifying marathon was the first thing to do. So I took a training program out of Runner's World, and I just followed the training program in Runner's World. It was like based on, your 5K time or your 10K time. What time do you think you can finish? I just followed this program. But I
Okay.
remember that for the week after I ran my qualifying marathon, I could barely walk, never mind train. I was so stiff. I was like hobbling around. I couldn't do anything. And I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to run 56 Ks? This is terrifying. But I came right, and then I ran a second marathon. And I mean, I was running a marathon then in like 4 hours. Like, it was slow, and I was very tired. And I just didn't have the whole running thing completely sorted out. But I was running quite consistently.
Okay.
Um, and then, yeah, then went to Cape Town with a friend of mine and ran the two oceans and just had such a great race. But complete novice era, rookie era, they always say you mustn't start the two oceans too fast. And it's very easy to start two oceans too fast. So I ran the first half of two oceans like a flying. I went so fast. I ran like PB 5K, 10K, 21K. I ran so fast. This is amazing. And then we got to, before Oak Savat going up Chapman's Peak, and I was like, oh, hold on, now I'm in trouble. So I know I did a lot of walking in the last third of the race because I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, I still managed to finish. So I think I was 22 years old, and I was first in my age category, which was under the 25 years, and I came 22nd overall,
Okay.
which I thought was quite cool. So I was the youngest finisher in the top 30. And I'd spent some time on the road because I was running so fast with some of the real contenders in the beginning of the race, and it was so exciting. I just loved it. Yeah, and then that's just really when I knew this is sort of the distance that I want to do. So really, just it was a great experience.
Okay. That's nice. Did you research the route before the start of the race, or you just took off from there, from the
Yeah,
start?
you read like route descriptions and you see the profile, but I didn't drive the route
Okay.
beforehand. I was like a university student. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just down there for the experience.
Okay.
And so I really just was completely unprepared. I mean, I remember I only took 3 gels for the whole race. I was going to rely on the tables. Like, I was super Harry casual about it.
Okay.
Um, so no, I mean, I didn't do any of the kind of research and prep that I do now as an athlete ahead of the race.
Okay, fine. Satish is saying it's all the way down the first half and then the hill starts. So what
Yeah,
was the reaction when the hill hit you?
yeah, lots of walking.
Okay, that's nice. So From that race, the bug, bit you, I guess, the running bug, and you started training a little more seriously. But what did you learn from that race? From that first race of yours.
So I think it was important to me that I needed a structured training plan. I know that if I hadn't followed a training plan from the magazine, there's no ways that I would have been ready for Two Oceans. I would have not known what to do. But I also think that following a personalized training program is really important. Like, it's great to take something out of a magazine, but actually, if you possibly can, you should try and work with a coach who's able to adapt and accommodate your particular requirements. And then race nutrition. Race nutrition is something that people often don't think about, and they haven't really, worked out what works for them, or they think, well, what I do on a long, slow run, maybe that's the same as what I'm going to do in a race, and that's not necessarily true. So I think that the training element was one aspect, but I think the race nutrition also was something that I thought this needs a lot of work. So those are two learning curves for me from the race.
Okay. Yeah, you're known to be a big time eater of food and gels during the race. So, what are your favorite, gels and food? What you eat actually?
Um, yeah, I really struggle to eat actual food on a race. So when I was running more slowly, so when I wasn't as competitive, I try and have like half a hot cross bun, maybe a couple of potatoes, maybe half a banana. Because if you're running a little bit less quickly, you maybe have time to have a walk and get that in and then carry on running. So, I mean, if you can do that, if you are the sort of runner who can take in something while you're walking through a water station or something like that, then I think eating real food is important.
Okay.
But if you are not able to stop and walk because you're racing,
Yeah.
then I take everything in liquid format. So it's literally got to be a gel or a juice or something like that. I don't have time to chew. I don't have time to stop and breathe and eat. So it really just depends on what your priorities are.
Okay, that's nice. So, there's a question from the audience. We got Nigel Clements, who is ex-Marine, and I think is tuning in from Philippines. Who's asking you, how many days rest do you take, complete rest, before your ultra runs?
In a taper, I probably would have 1 day's rest, complete rest before a race. But for the 2 weeks before a race, I'll obviously reduce my mileage so that there's a lot more shorter, easy runs. So there's active recovery. But in the week, like say the week before Comrades, I will probably rest maybe on the Monday, maybe not, maybe an easy run on the Monday, but I definitely will rest on the Friday before racing on Sunday.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Anne. And at that time, when you took up the running seriously, you said no, you realized the need for a coach. So, who was your first coach, and what did you learn from him or her?
Um, sure. I've been through quite a few coaches. um,
Okay.
so, and initially, I worked with a coach based in Durban, a guy called Norrie Williamson. But
Yeah.
he and I didn't really work out. Norrie wanted me to focus on 10Ks and 21s, and I just wanted to run long distance. And then when I moved from Norrie, I switched to Bruce Fordyce, who coached me then for 3 years. And we had quite a nice relationship. It was very much a mentorship relationship. And Bruce continues to mentor me to this day. So before Comrades, I'll always be going around to his house and asking him for advice and please remind me about this or that. And sometimes I'll see him on the route and he'll give me some advice there as well. So yeah, I worked together with Bruce for 3 years. I've coached myself for many years. And then in 2017, I then started being trained by a coach called John Hamlet. And I was with John Hamlet for 3 years, which was during that time I won Comrades. And then recently I've moved to Coach Lindsay Parry.
That's right. So each coach has their own style. Any learnings which you took, and because you said you coached yourself too. So any learnings you got from them which you actually used in your self coaching time.
Yeah, so I like to know the science of the coaching process. I'm a very science and fact-based individual. So if somebody gives me a training session, I want to know, why am I doing this training session? What's the benefit? Is there another way of getting this benefit? Like, I like to know how everything fits together. And as a result of that, I've actually done a lot of my own research into different training techniques. For example, coaches in the United States tend to coach quite differently to coaches in South Africa. South Africa, we're a bit more old-fashioned. Um, and also, nobody can coach comrades like South Africans. There might be a coach in another country who's good at ultra distance, but unless you really know comrades, it's hard for you to coach somebody to run comrades if that's your experience or that's your goal race. So I coach a number of athletes, and my husband also coaches athletes, and we've now been coaching for more than 10 years, and we have come to experiment on ourselves and with our athletes what works and what doesn't work. And
Okay.
so when I work with a coach now, um, it's more like a collaboration. So, we'll have a plan, and then we'll talk about the plan, and we'll talk about a little bit more here or a little bit less here. And, it's all about a learning process. So I've been very fortunate to work with coaches who really have extended me. I mean, before working with Bruce Fordyce, I had no idea about speed work and long runs and diets and all those things. And so Bruce was my first introduction to all of that, and he taught me a lot. And
Okay.
then when I joined John Hamlet, I mean, I did more than double the mileage with John than I'd done with any other coach ever. And then I thought, oh, well, now I've learned that my body can actually handle a lot more than I thought it could. And now I'm working with Lindsay, and now I'm learning, like, I don't have to do all that high mileage to still get the same results, so it's a
Okay.
constant learning process.
Okay. So, I mean, I like the fact that you're very scientific in your approach, and also, so it might be slightly difficult and as a trainee, you might be slightly difficult because you need explanation exactly why it is required. So, does your coaches struggle, or they say just do it and please, I will explain it later, something like
Yeah, so John didn't like it. John and I used to fight all the time. He'd be like, "Stop questioning me, just do it."
that?
We used to have
Okay.
quite a few arguments. But Lindsay's quite relaxed. He's quite accommodating. We have a phone call every Wednesday to discuss what's going on, and yeah, he takes time to explain things. And I actually think he quite enjoys being challenged. I think, he's like, "Oh, I better get this right because she's going to ask this."
Okay. So he might be researching a day before, actually, before the schedule is given. So it's like, yeah, possible questions from Anne. So, so I had Bruce also on the show, and I told him, okay, Bruce, here is your chance. I'm just tell the word comrades. Please speak about it. So if with Bruce, when we say comrades, and Bruce can speak for hours on comrades. But I would just like to ask you also, tell us a bit about this great run, which has been there for many, many years, getting close to the centenary run also. So why should one run it? Yeah. Why is it so dear in South Africa, and why should one run it?
So I think for South Africans, comrades can almost be a spiritual experience because it is so representative of us as a country. And not just all the bad stuff in our country, because there's a lot of bad stuff in South Africa, but it's what represents everything that is good in South Africa. So if you want to come to a country where you want like a bite-sized idea of what South Africans are like as a country, you run comrades, because Comrades is full of the very best kind of people in South Africa, whether they are on the side of the road, whether you're running with them, if they're supporting or not. That is the best version of South Africa, is at Comrades, because you see people helping each other and supporting each other, and it's just an incredible thing. And even just talking about Comrades, I get goosebumps, because for me, Comrades is so spiritual. It's the one day a year where your class or your age or the color of your skin or how much money you have or where you come from, it doesn't matter. It's just us against the distance. And it's just such a special day for anyone who takes part in it. And it's you against the distance. It's not you against anybody else. It's, can I get down the road in 90 kilometers? And it will test you beyond any point that you thought you could be tested. Not a single person, no matter how hard you train, ever finishes the race and says that was easy. We've all got war stories. We've all got bad patches. It's a really hectic day out there, but it will change you. It will really show you what you're made of, and at the same time, it will show you what South Africa is made of.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's such a lovely answer. That it's a spiritual run, and something which not only tests you for the distance, but also it also gives you a glimpse of what South African culture is. So Bruce had a lot of fun stories about Comrades. Have you got anything? I remember Bruce talking about during the start of the run, somebody lost the shoe and they had to pick up the shoe with a chip in it. So have you got anything like that in your run?
Mostly my Comrades experiences are bittersweet and less interesting. I haven't had a lot of funny races. Usually I find Comrades a bit hard to laugh about.
Okay.
But I've got quite a sweet story from last year, from 2019. I had a really painful back injury, and I was taking quite a lot of painkillers just to assist with the pain so that I could finish the race. And I got a little bit spacey, so that I didn't really know where I was going, and I was just kind of follow the road, and I was quite disorientated, and I managed to pass my husband somewhere on the road. He was having a bad run, and I didn't even talk to him. I was just no, just keep going forward. I just was in my own world. And then I tripped over a cat's eye with about 22 Ks to go, but didn't even know that I tripped over a cat's eye until my face hit the pavement. Shame. And luckily my husband was right behind me, and he could rush forward, but then he was worried that if he touched me, he was going to get disqualified. And my coach was also on the side of the road, and then my new coach was also on the side of the road, and all three of them kind of came around me, and they just stood there and they looked at me. Someone got to help me up. And they were like, no, we can't touch you. You have to get up on your own. And I was like, okay. And then I got up, carried on down the road, and you could see all these three men were just looking at me we want to help her, but we can't help her. I don't know. And it was such a weird experience. But then, then my husband ran behind me all the way so that he could no, you're going off course, you're getting lost, whatever you're doing, because I was in my car.
Okay.
So that was quite sweet. My husband was very sweet to me that day. He was very kind.
Okay, I hope.
And ran to the finish, but he didn't. He waited for me, so I was very lucky.
I hope they treated you with your favorite wine after that for not picking you up when you fell down.
Yeah.
So how many Comrades have you finished till now?
I've done 8.
Oh, 8. So getting close to the permanent number soon.
Yeah, I said I would only do 10. So that means I've only got 2 races left.
Okay, that's great. So you had Bruce and Jill Fordis as your mentors. I mean, how has been the experience? I mean, we know a lot about Bruce, but we know very little about Jill. So if you can just tell us, how have they helped you, and what have you learned from both of them?
So, I mean, Jill's like Mother Earth. Jill's the calm, collected, sensible, relaxed person. So on race day, you want Jill there because she doesn't get excited and stressed out. She's very, very good with getting on the route, when knowing where she has to be if she's seconding you, because she's done it for Bruce for so long. So she's very organized. She knows like how your bottles have to be. She knows all those things. So she's the motor house. She's the one that does all the hard work.
Okay.
But Bruce is like the expertise, right? If you want to know how to run comrades, he's the one that's going to tell you. And he really has given me amazing advice about how to approach different parts of the race, in terms of pacing, those sort of things that you would only know if you'd run the race. And getting advice from Bruce Fordyce, I can't think about getting advice from anybody better. He knows the race. He knows how to race the race. He knows how to win the race. So he's really amazing in terms of tactics and strategy and pacing and those sort of things. But both Bruce and Jill have been on the side of the road for me, 2018 and 2019, assisting with seconding, and that was really great, just to have them there and being supportive and screaming your name and shouting, telling you how you're doing and all those things. It's really been great. They're a great team. I don't think Bruce would be where he is without Jill, and I don't think Jill would be where she is without Bruce. So that's really good.
Okay, that's nice. Like the yin and yang, that's great.
Yeah.
So you won the Comrades in 2018 and 2018, the down version, and you also done extremely well in the up version. Uh, which one is your favorite, actually? I mean, if you want to look at it, after having run 8 of them, so which one do you think is a favorite?
So I used to say that I prefer the up run, but after 2019, I don't prefer the up run anymore. And I've actually only run the up run 3 times, but I've run the down run 5 times.
Okay.
So, and the up run, I've had 2 really terrible experiences. So 2 out of 3 bad experiences really should not make the up run my favorite.
Okay.
And my results are always better on the down run. So I think I'm going to go ahead and change it and say I prefer the down run.
Okay. Bruce, I think the Bruce hasn't really got into you because Bruce loves the upfront. So I think maybe Bruce has to work on changing that opinion, of course. So I mean, what can one do to do really well? Because both are 2 different types of runs, 2 different muscle groups of your body working. So what are the things you might recommend, while training for the up run and the down run, which will help them to tackle, the athletes to tackle it smoothly? Let's take the up run, for instance.
For the up run, it's more suited to lighter athletes. So, if you're carrying any excess weight, it might be a good idea to kind of trim down. But if you're training for comrades, you probably don't have any excess weight, so that's not a major concern. The up run is also important in terms of your race nutrition, because it's quite easy to get dehydrated on the up run because you're running up and you're running into humidity and into heat. So in terms of race nutrition, that's quite important. But training for the up run, there's only one way to train for the up run, and that's to practice running your hills. So hills. Hills when you're tired, hills when you're not tired, long hills, short hills, any kind of hill, just run hills. That's my advice for the up run. And then in terms of approaching the up run, start slow. Start very slow. If you think it's too slow, that's just right.
Okay.
So that would be for the up run. And for the down run, I think it's very important to be strong. So getting into the gym, doing leg strength, making sure you've got good lower back muscles, because all the downhill running often puts strain on your lower back. So really doing a lot more strength work for the down run is important.
Okay, I like the fact when you said if you think you're too slow, then you're just about right. That must be Anne Ashworth's statement of the day. For the run, I like that. So, does the weekly mileage change for both, or would that what would be the average weekly mileage that one should train for?
So I think that mileage is very individual. What works for some people is not going to work for others. And I think the lowest mileage I've done has been like 600 Ks, but the highest mileage I've done is 3,600 Ks. So it's a huge range. Um, but I would be aiming for a minimum of 1,000 Ks for a non-elite athlete. So a minimum of 1,000 Ks January to race day.
Okay.
So that's what I would be aiming for, and it doesn't matter whether you're running up or down.
Okay. And how many long runs would you recommend before preparing for the comrades?
So for non-elite athletes, I'd be recommending 3 runs of 60 kilometers each, as well as 3 marathon distance runs between 40 and 45. That I think that would see you through.
That. Thanks for the answer because there's a couple of questions popping up, from our comrade lovers. So that's it's nice. So time management and Anne Ashworth, Anne Ashworth can write a book on time management. You were at the time when you're winning the comrades. You were not only training, you were managing your coaching, you were working, home was there, and everything was there. So what are your 5 tips to anyone who are in similar situations like you when it comes to managing time?
Get it done early. Don't
Okay.
put off your training session. Make sure your training session is done first thing in the morning before anything else can happen. That's the golden rule.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, are there? I mean, last week I had Henrik Ramala, also from South Africa. He is a lawyer, and you are a lawyer too. So, is that like a lawyer's thing for running long distances?
Maybe it's for stress release. Maybe we're so stressed that's why we run so far.
That is what
No,
he said too.
yeah.
So,
If I didn't run, I would be crazy stressed. So it definitely does help to balance things. But I think it also has to do with your personality. Law particularly attracts A-type personalities, and A-type personalities are also the sort of people who do long distance running. So yeah.
okay, fine, that's nice. So you might have a lawyers association or runners group also. Is there something like that in South Africa? No.
No, we all have to belong to clubs. That's enough of an association.
That's great. And in fact, South Africa has a great running culture, right? You have got clubs in practically every suburb.
Yeah, it's a uniquely South African thing. I mean, I think it came from the UK where there's also a lot of clubs, but their clubs are mostly geographically based. So different parts of London will have different clubs. Whereas in South Africa, not only is it geographically based, so for example, Randburg Harriers, Randburg being a place, but there will also be sponsored clubs. So, for example, Nedbank Running Club is not geographically based anywhere, it just is a sponsored club. So there's a lot of dynamics in the South African club scene, and I mean, I think that's good because it encourages sponsorship and assisting athletes directly, which is important. And then I also think that it's great to run with friends and to have a community involvement and environment, making friends, and just, also for safety, it's nice to run with people who live near you just so that you're always safe. So yeah, I think it's great.
Wonderful. So when it comes to pace, there's not a huge difference yeah, in your pace, when it comes to marathon and the comrades. It's 3.41 for the marathon and around 4.26 for comrades. How do you manage to run at such high speed? I mean, such great pace. Actually.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, very, very different training, marathon training to oceans training. I mean, marathon to ultra training. So, I mean, I guess I just must have a maximum speed, and that's just the speed that I hold. But even as a child, I could always say like, okay, how far do I have to run yeah, I think I can hold this for that distance, and that would be my pace. I didn't actually start using pacing plans and running according to a watch until my third comrades.
Okay.
So, I'm used to running on feel. How does it feel? Do I feel good? Do I feel like I can hold this pace? Can I go a bit slower? Yes, no. And I think that's something you learn over time.
Okay. Thanks for that. Any special training you do for pace, or would you recommend for anyone who wants to improve their pace?
Yeah, so I mean, again, it's all relative. The pace that you're starting at, the pace that you want to go. So, um, so I mean, something that I'm experimenting with at the moment is something called threshold training, which
Yeah.
is intervals at race pace effort that gradually increase in distance. So, previously, or when you're a bit unfit or you're feeling a bit slow, then you say, well, I'm going to run marathon race pace for a kilometer, and then I'm going to have a break, and I'm going to do that 5 times. And
Yeah.
then as you get faster and you get more fit, then you say, well, I'm going to run 5Ks at marathon pace, and then I'm going to have a break, and then I'm going to do another 2 sets at 5Ks. And then your body's just learning to run it longer and longer at that faster speed. So that's something that I'm experimenting with at the moment. And then good old-fashioned fartlek, I think, is a great way of increasing your average pace. So that's fast, slow over a continuous run, whether it's up, down, flat, hilly, whatever, just constant changes in pace between fast and slow and fast and slow. I think that's a really good way to improve your speed.
Thank you. In comrades, there are stretches where runners don't really love it. What are your least favorite stretches in comrades, and why?
On the down run, I hate running through Pinetown. And it's because it's hot and humid, and there's so many people. It's very, 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 very crowded. Sometimes the crowds even come into the road, and there's barely enough space for you to run through. And
Okay.
I'm big on personal space. I don't like people touching me. I don't like being cramped. So I hate Pinetown on the down run. And on the up run, I hate running through Cato Ridge for many of the same reasons. That it's very crowded. There's lots of people there. It's hot, but it's also kind of the last big uphill. You've climbed out of Drummond, up in Changa, then you've done you've done Harrison Flats, and now you've got to climb up again to get to Umlas Road, and it's usually around about 65 Ks, and I think everybody's quite grumpy there. So at each of Pinetown and Cato Ridge, it's about 65 Ks, and I think I'm just grumpy by 65 Ks.
Okay. So what's your relationship between what's Anne's relationship with Polyshot? Because Bruce has got a lot of interesting. Yes, Bruce has got a lot of interesting stories. I just want to hear your side.
And
What do you do?
I don't have problems with poly shorts. I'm actually quite excited to get to poly shorts on the up run because I'm like, yes, it's almost over.
Okay. Okay.
But
So
yeah,
run or jog on Polyshot.
no, run. You run the whole
Run.
way.
You run the whole way. Okay. So you are a big admirer of and practitioner of visualization techniques. Can you just tell the audience a bit about it? From an athlete's point of view, how does it help, and what can one do to develop it?
Yeah, so I actually have done quite a lot of reading into sports psychology, and visualization is one aspect of that. And so what I do usually during a tempo session or a time trial or something where you're really having to push yourself very hard is I then visualize myself at different parts of the race. So, like I'll be imagining myself running in the 3 kilometer straight from the old stadium to the new stadium, which is the last 3 kilometers of the down run. And so I'll be running, for example, a 5K time trial, and I'll imagine myself running the last 3Ks of comrades and coming into the stadium. And then I imagine the time on the clock and what happens afterwards. So, before 2018, before I won in 2018, I imagined the time on the clock being about 6 hours 15, and I imagined coming in and being first. I imagined having my coach there. I imagined giving him a big hug. I imagined seeing Bruce. Like, I imagined these things, and I mean, it all came true. It was amazing. And I can't explain. I mean, obviously, we worked hard for it, but to have your visualization come into truth, into being, it's incredibly powerful. And so now when I train, again, I will visualize what is my next race going to be? What's the time on the clock going to be? What's going to happen at the finish line? And it's almost like you will that into being. If you can imagine it, you can dream it, you can achieve it. Is basically how I try and make it happen.
That's a very nice way of saying it. Do you do that every day before the race, or how much, or is it like something which you practice?
No, it comes quite organically. So obviously, as you get closer to a race, you do it more. So yeah, but I mean, no, I don't do it every day. But in the build up to a race, you definitely think about it more, and especially when you've got a feel for how well your training has gone. What do you think you can achieve? Then your visions become a lot more focused.
Okay. Thanks for that. Now you got a new vision, right? Which is running a 100-kilometer race. I just wanted to know, how is that progressing now?
Well, with COVID, it's not progressing very well. So my goal for 2021, I thought was going to be, well, actually my goal for 2020 was hopefully going to be World 100K Champs, and that was cancelled. And now I'm waiting to hear whether it's going to be held in 2021 or whether it's going back to 50Ks in 2021. I would obviously prefer it to be 100, because the further the distance, the better I do. So I prefer to do the 100K Champs, but I will still try and qualify for the World 50K Champs in any event.
Great. So we have heard a lot of you as an athlete, about you. Tell us something about Anne Ashworth as a coach.
I'm a hard taskmaster.
Okay. Well-read taskmaster, because you have the answers for the reasons why you have to do it, right?
Exactly. No, I mostly coach female athletes. I do coach some men, but mostly women. And I have a good selection of abilities. So I coach from elite to very social athletes. And my preference is to coach marathon distance and ultra marathon distance runners. I can coach 21 and 10K, but it's not really my area of expertise. My husband does all distances, so he does 10Ks upwards. I really enjoy coaching. I mostly enjoy the mentorship part of it. I really love helping an athlete to realize their full potential. So it's not really, it is an income stream for me, but that's secondary to my enjoyment of helping an athlete achieve their dreams. So I really enjoy coaching. I love getting involved. It's hugely rewarding. I know you coach as well, and it's just a great thing to be part of someone else's running journey.
Okay. That's nice. So hard taskmaster. Okay, that is tough then. Social runners nowadays, because running has got is a boom. There's a big boom in running, and maybe not in South Africa, because you already had a good culture of running, but all over the world. But a lot of these new runners who come. So what are the things which the new runners want to achieve? And you found it funny, like they want to, they come and say, okay, and I want to run a sub 3 hour a marathon and things like that. So what are the things which the new runners say, which you might find funny?
It's more a case of what they do. So, you might have done a very structured training plan for 2 weeks, and then a runner will get it into their head that actually they want to run a 50-kilometer virtual race on like week number 2 because they thought it was a good idea. And you're like, no, what are you doing? You're going a 50K virtual race. So these virtual races have been great because they've kept people active, but you've got no control over your athletes now because they can run a virtual race based anywhere in the country. And I found this year, like, people have signed up to do the most outrageous races that their training was nowhere near ready for them to do.
Okay.
Like when there was the Comrades on and we'd all decided we weren't running Comrades, and then you could run the 45K, then I had athletes that were like, oh, we think it's a good idea to run the 90K.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that's been quite frustrating for me this year.
Patience is a thing which the social runners lack. Actually, maybe they want to achieve everything in the first year itself, right?
Yeah, and I think with COVID also, people have been so limited and so constrained that when they have an opportunity to really express themselves in their running, they just take it with both hands. So I can understand that.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice. Satish out here is saying that he just wants to book his ticket for the next Comrades. Do you think it will happen in the year 2021 before he books his tickets?
I think that if a Comrades goes ahead, and I'm really hoping that it does, it will be in a very different format to
Okay.
the way the race is typically being held. And that may include no international athletes because of crowd sizes and things like that. At this stage, a major concern for me is how are we going to qualify? Because at the moment in South Africa, we still are not allowed to run distances further than 10 kilometers. So we're not able to qualify for marathons, and there haven't been any qualifying marathons, since March. So how are we going to qualify? I don't know how the race is going to go ahead if we can't run qualifying marathons. And I think that there will be limitations on numbers of athletes at the start, which would mean restricting athlete entries. And it would seem to make sense to me, and I could be completely wrong, but if you're going to limit the number of athletes, it would make sense to limit the number of international athletes as a start. So I wouldn't be booking your tickets until you've heard more.
Okay. Sorry, Satish, hold on to your tickets till they make a final decision. So please hold on. Do not book your tickets as of now. So my final question. It's close to 1 hour. We have been speaking. So my final question would be top 5 advice by Anne for anyone who wants to become an athlete like you.
So I think that it's very important to get a coach and to make sure that you are following a well-balanced eating plan that incorporates all the proper nutrients and vitamins and minerals and calories and all those things that you need to perform as an athlete. Because in my experience, one of the major downfalls of athletes is that you can't outrun a bad diet. And so if you haven't got a good diet, your running is never going to be as good as it could be. So in addition to finding yourself a coach, you probably need to get yourself onto an eating plan and or visit a dietitian. And that is my top advice.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I just ask you one last question? Somebody has just joined in. So just one more question, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Okay. One of the runners has joined in. Said, I wasn't aware of the interview earlier, but how do you carbo load for Comrades and maintain hydration during and after the run? Any plan to be followed on this for Comrades?
So carbo loading is quite outdated now. Certainly elite athletes, we don't do it anymore. So it's more about focusing on a constant stream of food intake in the weeks ahead of a race. So traditional carbo loading would be 3 to 4 days of pasta, and making sure you get in a lot of water. And we just don't do that anymore. It's not the right approach. What you need to be making sure is right from the beginning of your training and throughout your training, you are making sure that you get in enough nutrients. And it's not just carbohydrate. Protein is very important. Fats are very important. It's really important to have a balanced diet. So, I mean, I think the week before Comrades, I don't change my diet at all. And the only thing that I would change is the day before Comrades, I would have a very big meal at lunchtime, which would have carbohydrate in it, but then I would have a very small meal at dinner time. But other than that, my diet doesn't change at all. So no carb loading.
Okay, I mean, we are from India. We are carbo loaded from childhood onwards. So because we are basically rice eaters. So I think carbo loading. Yeah, and I would say no bunny chow before the race. So
Oh no,
okay.
carry.
So thank you very much, Anne, for your time, and it's been a pleasure talking to you and hearing about your experiences and the first time you're addressing runners in India through. I'm proud and privileged it's through my page, and we hope that we can. It's inspiring for everyone who wants to run and win a race and also become a good athlete. Thank you very much for coming in, Anne. Can you just be in the studio? I'll just talk to you in a few minutes. If you can just be. Thank you very much. Any final hello to India? Would you like to come to India sometime?
Yeah, I'll have to put it on my bucket list. When the borders open, I'll be there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Anne. Yeah, just be online. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. It was a fantastic interaction and chat with Anne. So nice to hear her experiences. And I loved a few of the things what she said. Yeah, if you're running slow, you must be just about the right pace. You cannot outrun a bad diet. Are the two things which I loved hearing. Her combat experience was also excellent. Tune in for next week. We got another great interview coming up. And that is the interview is of Liz McColgan. She is from UK and she is an Olympic medalist. First time we are getting an Olympic medalist into our show, and it will be nice to hear about her experience. Tune in and I would say that do watch the updates in my channel for this interview, which I am really again super proud of bringing them here, and hopefully this will inspire our athletes to get an Olympic medal. So thanks, it's been a pleasure joining and hearing from all of you all. So thanks for the interaction, and yes, thanks for coming in.